Welcome back to Houston Real Estate Radio. We've got a lot going on today. We are actually Skyping in folks from around the country talking about a lot of different things today. Last segment, we talked about NAR's danger report that they released earlier in the year. We're talking with Stefan Swanepoel. He was the leader in putting this together for NAR. So we've got him on the line. We talked a little bit about the impact, things that could impact the industry for realtors and for the brokerages and brokers. And now we're going to move on to industry associations. You know, here in Houston, we have a large association, the Houston Association of Realtors. And, you know, they do a lot for our real estate community here in Houston and are very well known at TAR for doing a lot in the industry. And just, 30,000 realtors, that's a lot. That's a lot of realtors here in the Houston market. So when you wrote this danger report, what are the things that you see that could potentially affect our local associations?
Realtor associations provide an incredibly large contribution to the real estate business and professional people that work in that business. And our industry would not be where they are today without them. So they're incredibly valuable. But as you said, when you said Houston is very large, yes, Houston is one of the largest in the country. Mm-hmm. But when you start aggregating these associations together, I mean, on a national basis, 1.1 million members for the National Association of Realtors. That makes it the largest trade association in the world, any occupation, any profession. So just by its very nature, these organizations often appear to many people to become stodgy. They look a little bit like government. They function like bureaucracies because they have committees and subcommittees and regions and representation. So when we critically look at them, we sometimes say that it appears that their leaders are not always in unison with the market. They're moving too slow. They have multiple tiers and structures. We think that their boards of directors are cumbersome. They don't take quick decisions. And those comments are all true. They're all valid. But at the same time, a nonprofit association functions differently from a small, nimble, new .com company. So the report tries to identify those things which are not criticisms of associations, but rather identifying them for the very structure they are and saying, if you want to compete against a .com company, if you want to look like a Fortune 500 business, well, then you probably need to streamline your governance, your board, your decision-making structures. And that's what the report largely focuses on. The other item which we like to also bring to their attention is that real estate is often seen as a second or a third career. It is not often that we have a lot of 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds or 23-year-olds entering the industry. Those are usually smaller in number. So we more often have a 40-something, a 50-something, a 60-something come to the industry, which means when you look at the leadership of an association, their leadership is also usually more mature.
Right.
Now, of course, that brings the value of years of experience. That's the good side. The downside is that innovation, if you look at the Facebooks and the Yahoos and the Googles and the eBays, innovation usually comes from a 20 or a 30-something and not from a 60 or a 70-something.
Right.
So associations are lacking young blood. We could do with tens of thousands of new realtors and tens of thousands of new people who would be willing to serve on leadership positions in the association, both in Houston, Texas, as well as nationally.
Well, sometimes it's hard to get them there, though, as you know.
Yes.
It's that's hard to get them in the place you want them to be.
Very much.
So it's an uphill battle for the younger folks to get where they want to be. All right, let's talk about the MLS. What are the dangers for the MLS?
So multiple listing services are those services that are offered to the real estate professional industry to share data so that they can better serve the consumers and the people some of the people which are on your call today. So it is a data sharing service, and they originally existed in local areas. Right. So we originally had thousands of these. Now, over time, with the advent of large computer systems and the internet, we don't need thousands, or even at this point in time, I think we have 770 or so left in the country. And you might say, well, we only need 1 or 5 or 10. But we have these old legacy systems and we are gradually consolidating. But it is taking a long time. If we consolidated one MLS every week, it would take us 2 decades to consolidate them all. I mean, so it's a huge process. And they all have different forms and different documentation and different codes and different backends and different software. So that whole consolidation is most certainly one of the struggles of the industry. Another struggle, of course, is that as it takes such a long time to consolidate, people are seeing this as an opportunity and new companies are entering the industry. So we are consistently fighting. And when we see a new, I don't know, you could call them portals, you could call them the Zillows or the Trulias, the industry gets all ruffled. All their fellows get ruffled and say, oh, there's a new competitor. This is the end of the world. And of course, it's not the end of the world. But yes, innovation is necessary.
Says the man who named a report the Danger Report.
Yes.
The doomsday of the industry.
We should be paranoid, but we should be aware of change being necessary and that it's happening. And we should understand that there will always be somebody building a better mousetrap.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever have a national MLS? Do you think it can ever be possible to have a national MLS where everyone can actually agree to participate in one system?
I think we are actually reasonably rapidly moving in that direction. When I say rapidly, I think we could have, now remember, a multiple listing could be a front end, it could be the back end, it could be a set of rules, we could use a common database and still have different front ends. But if you're saying, is there a national initiative or play there? The answer is yes. There are probably a half a dozen companies working towards that as we speak. And I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, you will see announcements happen as we successfully conclude some of those pieces. Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, and let's see, what did we not talk about? NAR. We didn't talk about the National Association of Realtors. So they're the ones who wanted this report done. What did you figure out that their dangers are to their association?
Well, one of the hardest things that NAR has to structure with is the fact that they are a representation of the associations across the country. So depending on your size of your association, you have certain number of representatives. So almost like Congress, you are elected to the NAR board not because you are one individual skilled person, you represent the constituents of a certain area or branch or association or area. So NAR's full board of directors is probably about 852 people. That's a big board. That's bigger than Congress and the Senate and the White House combined.
Yeah,
that's
huge.
A lot of people. Now, that is the official highest authority of NAR. Now, of course, they do have a leadership team. They do have an executive committee. So that's not the only decision-making structure. Mm-hmm. But yes, NAR has to deal with the 3 tiers, national, state, and local. Mm-hmm. It has to deal with this big representation of a board. It has to always say, am I based on quality of membership or are based on quantity of membership?
Right.
And it is, of course, trying to be both. And it is hard. Sometimes you want thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of members because you want to be the biggest in the world. At other stages, you want to put education and ethical standards and requirements in place.
We'll be right back with more from Stefan Swanepoel here on Houston Real Estate Radio, right after a word from our sponsors.
People often find themselves in need of storage and moving, but don't want the hassle and stress. Sound familiar? Well, at Zippy Shell, we make storage and moving easy. Zippy Shell will deliver a storage container to your home or business. You load it at your leisure, and we'll take it to one of our safe, convenient storage facilities. Or ship it to your final destination. We treat your stuff like it's our stuff, because we understand you're not just giving us your belongings, you're giving us your trust. Zippy Shell. Storage and moving that makes life simple.